It is a rare rainy day in ABQ, Albuquerque Business Podcast. We are here. We are live. We are ready to go. I want to talk about 3 habits that will change your selling game. This comes from sellsgravy.com. I know that sounds funny, sellsgravy.com. We all love gravy. This is a Southern thing, I think. I don't know, but I love getting his newsletters. It's Jeb Blount, Blount. He has the Ultimate B2B Field Guide for raising price without losing customers. He's got a ton of stuff. This is one of the chapters in that book, and I want to go over it with you because I think this is going to help you. And I know some of you hate sales, but we're all salespeople. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're in business, you have to sell. You have to. Maybe your style may be a little bit more unique or different, but guess what? If we are in business, we are in sales. So don't tune me out on this. If you're a sales manager, this is going to help you. It'll help you set some priorities. But I want to talk about 3 sales habits that close more business. And if you don't want to use the word sales, you can use customer success. I know a lot of people don't have sales teams anymore. They have customer success teams. That's what we do. And it's more educational, creating value over, high pressure, sign this here, sign this, do this right now. Some of you are in those type of businesses where if the customer leaves, you'll never see them again. We used to call that in the auto industry, and a lot of us started off in that industry. We called it the be-back bus, and no one was ever on that bus. It was rare that people would come back. And that's a whole conversation in and of itself, and the way that people are purchasing automobiles. But I want to get into these 3 sell habits that close more business. And I want to look at top producers, and that's what they did, a study on top producers. They examined neuroscience and emotional intelligence skills. And then in that, the discipline and the development that it requires to create successful habits day in and day out. And that creates extraordinary sales results. So there was 3 simple habits that they came up with. Well, first, before we get into those 3, what makes a habit a habit? Well, Webster says a habit is something that a person does in a regular and repeated, keyword, repeated way. And Jeff Blount says, after working with salespeople for over 20 years, I found the key differentiator between average salespeople and stellar salespeople is their daily habits. No shit, Sherlock. We know this. All of us have been there, done that. We've seen our daily habits. And I know this sounds cliche. Well, it's our daily habits. But we fuck up every day. Every single day. We fuck up in our daily habits and the things that we know we ought to do. The gym is the easiest one. That's the physical. That's why I say it's so important to go to the gym, and it's so important to spend the money to get a physical trainer, a good one that will hold you accountable, where you have to go to the gym. It gives you no excuses. You need a trainer like that. My trainer charges me if I show up or not. So I show up 95, 98% of the time. If I give him a couple days heads notice, then he's fine with it and we can reschedule. And I do that very rarely because his schedule's so busy. So I feel obligated to go. Well, guess what? For the past 2.5 years since I've been with him, and I can give you guys that information, DM me. I'd be more than happy to give you the contact if you're local here in Albuquerque. It's expansion training with Dwayne. I'll share that information. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes. I think that'll be better. His Instagram, then you guys can see that and then hit him up. He is expensive, but I need to get the physical part down first, because once I get that part down, then it trickles down to the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. I'm not an emotional crazy leader when I'm physically exercised and my body and my muscles are tired and those endorphins have already hit. I'm a lot more patient leader and not such an asshole, if that makes sense. So daily habits. Aristotle said it best. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. Love that. So these 3 top sales habits of top producers: examining neuroscience and emotional intelligence skills, behind the development of success habits. Number one, focus. Focus is the new competitive weapon for sales organizations. In a world where most people have the attention span of a gnat, you can win business by teaching your team the power of being present and focused and listening. Present and focused, not hurrying up and waiting for that person to. I did that the other day on a sales call. I caught myself not being present, one, and then number two, trying to talk too much and not listen. So I calm myself down. I just ask questions, and I let the other person do. 20% of my talking is just asking questions, writing notes down from their answers, and then repeating their answers back to them in a logical format. Multitasking, we know, doesn't work. You can't focus. If you're trying to learn a new skill or trying to understand a neuroscience or emotionally intelligent skill, you're not going to do that by having a shitload of different things to do and then jumping from one to one to one to one. That's not how the brain works. So how do we leverage our brain power? Well, the prefrontal cortex, often referred to as the executive center, is charged with learning new information. And it's the only part of the brain that you have to concentrate on that one thing at a time to have optimal amount of learning. And I think it's important when you have meetings or sales training or a meeting in general in your business, do not allow people to be on their devices. I make everybody put them on airplane mode. And then, you do not answer your phone. If I'm on Zoom, everybody's on video. I don't want you not have your video on and you leave your mic on and here, click, 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 click. Not going to have that. Top salespeople, like top athletes, know that focus is needed in order to execute the sales playbook. And this is the crazy part. You as a leader, a CEO, a sales manager, a CMO, whatever it may be, we fall short on modeling this behavior too. We're the ones that pull out our phones in the meeting. We're the ones that check our message when somebody else is talking. We're the ones that when we sit down and do coaching one-to-one, our phone beeps and we grab it. We're checking emails on our desktop, looking at our screen, not paying attention when they're sharing to us something that's important. So we have to be the good example. Number two, not just focus, but number two is practice. When you meet successful people, you see there's been hours and hours and hours of work and dedication. That's the only way you become the best in your field. So what is the neuroscience behind practice? You're born with 100 billion neurons. Each of these neurons have the ability to make 15,000 connections, called synapses. Continued connections become a neural pathway or something often referred to as hardwiring. This process is similar to hiking through the woods. The more time the trail is hiked, the easier it becomes to navigate because the path is cleared of branches and woods. So how do you create new neural networks? When you are practicing, you are forming new trails in your brain, and those can be easily accessed over time. These new networks get stored in the area of the brain called the basal ganglia. And knowledge stored in the basal ganglia is recalled without a lot of thought or effort because you've gone over that trail, you've hiked that, you got to think that neural pathway, you've hiked that over and over and over again. If a prospect has a tough question, the practiced sales rep delivers his response with self-confidence. There's no mumbling, stumbling, or I'm going to have to get back with you. They just sit there, look in the eyes. Because of practice, they can answer the response. Tony Dungy, the former NFL coach we all knew, he talked about the power of focus, practice, and good habits, and that, he believed, led his team to the Super Bowl. He said this: champions don't do extraordinary things. They do ordinary things, but do them without thinking. They're too fast for the other team to react. They follow the habits they have learned. We all know in the military they taught us this. We always drop down to our level of training when we get in a stressful situation. So you have to be trained at a high degree that when stress hits, bullets are flying around, you're going to drop down to that training. And then training, you want training just to take over and you not think. Same with UFC fighting. The fighters don't even realize that they were in the octagon. The fight started, and then before you know it, they either won or lost. That's all that training, hours and hours of training taking over. Number three, and then we'll close, delayed gratification. This is the third one. This emotional intelligence skill consists of the ability to put in the work to get the reward. And the reason we have such a hard time with finding good salespeople is because of instant gratification society. Salespeople are taught to expect sales success right away. Putting in the time and the work. You don't have to do that. Your first month, you're going to come out swinging. It's going to be awesome. Referrals, that takes time. That takes years to build a book of referrals. Getting warm introductions to prospects. Having a B2B sales cycle. Imagine that, 8-9 months before you close a sale. Increase close ratios. How long does that take? They can't execute. Many salespeople don't execute the strategy because they don't take time to build a relationship. Let me say that again. In sales, it's about building a relationship. So how do you practice delayed gratification? Well, one of the ways to do that is to get into the habit of giving, to practice the habit of creating trust, to build relationships. You make deposits in their potential referral partner's emotional bank account in order to create trust. You stop by, bring some donuts, don't pressure, stop by, bring lunch, ask if you can bring lunch. If you got a Zoom call, before the Zoom call, ask if you can get the address and see if you can have lunch so that, and then you and them can eat lunch together on the Zoom call and have a conversation. It's like having a meal together. The deposit might be giving a referral. It might be inviting your partner to an event. It might be taking them to educate them on how and why to do business with them. It might be putting aside their need for instant gratification and do the work in order to earn the reward. We're hardwired for this. Why do we like pulling levers at gambling machines? It's evolutionary psychology, guys. We want to earn the reward. We like it. That's why we like digging, finding things, hunting for berries. Then all of a sudden we pull up this branch and there's thorns there and we look, but then there's a shitload of berries and we get all excited. We're geared for this. Harness the power of your brain. Focus, practice, and develop your delayed gratification skills, and I guarantee you'll be in the top 1% of all salespeople.
Joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share. And go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.